everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of Diary of the Dead, the 2007 George A. Romero zombie movie. And right off the hop, I'm just going to tell you this. When this movie came out, I was so excited to see it. And when I found out this movie was going to be what had been announced, I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. And I loved the idea that it was a low-budget film. Because here's the thing. I enjoyed all four movies that came before this and that Romero had made in his zombie world. I thought that they were a little bit uneven, the first two being better than the latter two, but I thought they all had interesting elements. But with Land of the Dead, the movie that he had made prior to this one in his zombie world, I thought that it was a little bit held back by the idea that he had created this kind of monster world where, you know, it was this society that was all about, and it had this big killing machine vehicle kind of thing. And I felt like he had kind of taken the fact that he all of a sudden had a bigger budget to make this with, and the special effects had advanced, and he was like, I gotta take advantage of that instead of telling like kind of a smaller, more interesting story. So I thought, you know, if he has a smaller budget and he has to kind of limit his storytelling in that regard, it might encourage him to kind of get back to the roots of this series, which is something that I was like, that definitely should happen. So I was jazzed to see it, and then I saw it, and I was not jazzed any longer. I think this movie is terrible. There is literally nothing about it I like. Nothing. I thought that the idea behind it was kind of cool. The whole idea of the first person shooting, where everything is shot where it's kind of in the Cloverfield vein, and all that kind of stuff. The shaky cam, I thought that could have been interesting. It could have been a story device that added to the film, but I thought it took away from it. I thought the casting was terrible. The effects, for the most part, were awful. There was literally one moment that I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. And throughout the rest of it, I was like, man. And there are so many moments in this movie where I'm just, so bad. There is not a character in this movie that I find interesting. I mean, right off the hop, this movie starts off where they're this film crew and they're shooting this independent horror film, and you know, that was a way to start the film. I didn't think it was necessarily good or bad. It was, you know, it kind of dropped you off into this world that everything was just kind of mundane, and the zombie apocalypse had just started, and you understood that maybe it was kind of connected tangentially to the original four movies, but maybe not, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, okay, I'll go on this ride with you. And then you get introduced to these characters. I mean, this movie is led yet again by a female character, which I thought was cool, but I thought her character was extremely uninteresting and just written like almost a throwaway. She has a lot of lines, but she's reacting to the world more than anything else. I mean, she doesn't have much of a character arc. She's a beautiful woman. The actress who played the character doesn't do a bad job. It's just she just didn't have a whole lot to do other than kill zombies and try to be fascinating and reflective, but not in any kind of way that was actually interesting. So I thought her character was, I could take her or leave her. She's just kind of there. And then they have the guy who is filming everything, and the problem I have with his character is they go to the well with him over and over and over again. I think it's like 4 or 5 different times. People are like, why don't you put down the camera and actually kind of accept the world that you're in? I think you're shooting this so that you could see that this is happening through the prism of it being fake and being part of a movie. And that was their way of trying to have this deep message where he's becoming a voyeur of this situation. He's not really just kind of injecting himself into it, and he's not letting it be real because he's shooting it all in order to try to take it away from his world and make it so he's experiencing it like he's watching a movie. They state it over and over again, and I gotta tell you, that is not that deep of an idea. It's not interesting. It's not new. It's not fresh. It's something that a lot of people have seen in previous films, and it's not, you're not like, that is a thought-provoking idea. Nope, not at all. The first time they said it, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, that's the thing that they said. The 4th or 5th time, I was like, oh, come on, stop it already. Stop it. You suck. You suck so bad. And the one part that I thought was actually kind of fun was there's this moment where they come across an Amish dude, and he's got a scythe, and when you see him take out a zombie with a scythe, I mean, I thought that was freaking rad, but that is very short-lived, and it disappears very quickly after that, and there's very little follow-up, so that's not nearly enough to get me into this movie. And and they're driving across this countryside or whatever, and that also has a problem where, you know, he's got a high quality camera, definitely mid range at the very least, so that the rest of the movie doesn't look terrible. But for all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they cut to a cell phone footage which completely breaks the whole concept of the film. But whatever, they do that, and it's so obvious they did that because they didn't have the effects budget to make this moment look legitimate at all. Where they're driving down the road and they start hitting zombies with their vehicle, so they feel like if they're shooting with a cell phone, it looks like further away, and you may not be able to tell how fake this is, and that there's just, you know, mannequins or something to that effect. And I thought, if you can't make it look real, don't do it. Don't break the movie by going all of a sudden to a different camera view just so that you can try to hide that it doesn't look legit. Just don't do it. I mean, even if they wanted to do it, like, obviously there had to be some kind of budget there for them to bring in these zombies. So maybe just take all the money that they had to get all the standing still zombies, the mannequins or whatever, and just create one thing that at least could look a little bit legitimate, and shoot it in a way that you don't necessarily stick on it, but it's just this kind of flash moment like they did in the original Dawn of the Dead with the whole guy getting shot. Just do it very, very quick, and it would have been much more interesting than all of a sudden breaking the movie to go to this different shot. I mean, that was awful. But I'll say this, there's one character that I just absolutely abhor in this movie. There's this guy who you find out was a part of the military, and throughout the film he's got a bow and arrow that he uses, and they're like, oh, how did you get to use that? And he's like, oh, I was in the army, and that's how I learned how to use a bow and arrow. And I'm watching this movie and I'm like, okay, so there's cell phones, it's a modern world, but this guy was in the army and they taught him how to use the bow and arrow? What war was he training for? Like, was he planning to go back in time to join a war? What world is it that the army would be treating him to use a bow and arrow? That is just stupid. Just so stupid. And then later on in this movie, there's this moment where he's looking in a mirror, and he's like, he gives this monologue that I think is equally terrible as the whole camera thing, where he's like, I hate the mornings, because in the mornings I can see myself and see what I've done. And it's just like, you were trying so hard to be deep, and it's something that Romero pulled off in his earlier films. And the reason why I find his earlier films to be the best zombie movies of all time, but he's trying really hard to say something, but he has nothing to say apparently. So he's just bringing back tropes that we've seen in terrible other movies that don't have anything interesting to say either. Oh, when I look in the mirror, all I see is my misdeeds. Oh, shut up, you suck. This movie drives me nuts. I don't like this movie, if you can't tell. So those are my thoughts on Diary of the Dead. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. If you were a fan of it, and if you were, how that's possible, whatever. Other than that, please hit that like button, hit that share button. It makes it much more likely that other people come check out this review and let me know what they think. And that would be awesome, because I love talking to people about movies, and I'd love everybody to be one of them. And if you're a new subscriber, I'd love you to be one of them, or a new viewer. Please stick around. And by that, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way you can find out when I put out a new video and come and join the conversation. Aside from all that, have yourself a good day.